One of the questions I've been obsessed with lately is an idea that I heard from Rick Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got this idea that ideas are not ours, that we don't think and create our own ideas, it's not like something that we make, but something that channels through us.
Yeah.
As somebody who's a full-time creative, do you think that ideas are ours, or do you think that we're simply a vehicle for them?
I think that ideas kind of come in like a flow state. I totally understand what this concept is and what he's saying with they come to you in like certain moments. And I think like a book that I read when I graduated college was like How to Steal Like an Artist. And it's like all like, you can't really like own an idea, you know what I mean? So I think they like come and go, and it just kind of depends on your like vulnerability and openness in the moment for them to be able to come to you.
Interesting. Do you think you can lose ideas? Like, do you think if you don't do something with them that they can be passed to somebody else, or that they might just vanish?
Yeah, I think so.
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I don't think it's bad. You know, it's just kind of like the flow of creativity. And if you don't harness in, and if you're not like in that susceptible mode to work, then it might fleet. And then you kind of have to wait for the next round of that idea, or just a variation of that idea.
Yeah. There was I was listening to Chris Williamson's podcast this week, and somebody on there gave an anecdote about Michael Jackson, and he called his producer one night at like 3 a.m. or something like that. And he woke up and he had an idea for what became one of his biggest hit songs. And his producer's like, no, dude, we're not recording. It's 3 a.m. We'll record it in the morning. Like, go get a couple more hours of sleep. He said, no, because if we don't record it right now, Prince is going to wake up with this idea, and he's going to record it before I do.
Interesting.
And I thought that was such an interesting thing, that like somebody who is objectively one of the most creative people of like multiple generations has this idea that ideas don't belong to him. That it's just like, I just have to act on this.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is creativity and like leaning towards being more of a creative something that's always been present in your life, or how did that kind of manifest for you?
Yeah, growing up, I always was like in my own little world, like doodling artist. My teachers were like, oh, she has ADHD. And I'm like, I probably do, but I'm not going to get medicated. Yeah. So it's always just like, it's kind of the way that I focus too. Like if I'm in a lecture, like the way that I'll be able to listen is just kind of like doodling along. And yeah, and that kind of just escalated over the years. I got to high school, I took every art class that was offered at West High. I did my like senior capstone exhibition with all my paintings, and I was like, oh, this feels kind of good. You know, this feels kind of cool. And then I got and I was like, I think I want to be an artist. And then actually I wanted to be an art teacher at first. So then I was looking at my high school art teacher, and I was like, her job looks pretty fun. I kind of want to do that. Okay.
Did you guys get along well? Like, was she an inspiring person for you?
Yeah. I mean, when I look back at my inspirations, it's a lot of my teachers and college professors and high school art teachers, even middle school art teachers.
Okay.
Who really kind of encouraged me. Even my elementary school art teacher was like, she submitted my work into like some of the award event things here. So it was just
like, you didn't do your homework, but we're submitting this.
Yeah. So, so I went to college at MSUB here, and I got my degree in art education. And during college, I studied abroad in Italy. And so when I studied abroad, that was when I was like, I don't know if I really want to teach. I was so inspired by all these artists all over the world that were just being full-time creatives, and I was just kind of in awe of their lives and their stories. And so that was really kind of a pivotal moment for me, is being overseas and seeing artists, you know, like in their environment and just kind of thriving and making a living out of it and being weird and eccentric. And I was like, that's awesome. I want to do that.
That's definitely me.
Teaching I can do, you know, I have my certification in K-12 education, so I could always maybe kind of go back if I want to, but right now this is just what's like fitting for me and my vibe right now. Yeah.
Do you think that having that certificate and having the ability to fall back on that maybe gave you a sense of security to be willing to go full-time on your art?
Yeah, I think so. And I think just like being able to go I was serving in bartending for like 10 years before I went full-time. So I kind of made that jump knowing that if it didn't work, then I could go back and probably get my same shifts and make the same money. So I had that kind of cushion, in the back of my head. It was comforting. But I was like, I kind of wanted to prove everyone wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things that I get curious about is how much like positive feedback loops play into people being able to be creative. Because you hear stories, whether it's musicians or artists or whoever is in a creative field, of the teachers and the friends and stuff saying like, you're never going to make it, you should quit this, you should do whatever. But it seems to me like there must be some versions of positive feedback loops that, whether it's teachers or friends or somebody says like, you need to keep doing this, or your work is really good, or you should enter this competition or something like that. And I'm curious for you, what you think about the role of like positive feedback loops as it pertains to somebody like being willing to go all in on doing that as a career.
Yeah. I mean, I do think positive feedback is important, and just kind of like having people, like people pleasing in a way, and making people, interested in buying and supporting an artist. So I think like that positive feedback is really motivating. But then I also can see the other side where like, I kind of like to hear people, like when I first started doing shows, I would like not say I was an artist, and I'd just kind of sit in the back of the room and listen to people talk. Yeah. And I liked to hear like, what is this? Like, I don't know what she's thinking. Like I don't like these colors together. And that kind of motivates me too.
Yeah.
So I can see like the positive feedback being a motivational thing, but I also like I like disturbing people with the weirdness of art. I like people to see, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just, yeah, I don't know.
I'm curious. I think that's such a cool thing that you decided to stand in the back in the early days.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, it's almost like observing people observe your art.
Right.
Where did that come from? Like, what was your headspace that said, okay, instead of standing in front of this and claiming this as my own, I want to become anonymous during this time and like watch people observe this?
Good question. I think like being out of like the spotlight, because when you have an art show, you're kind of the focal point. I mean, your art is up there obviously, but.
And are these art shows just you, or is there other people in this gallery?
These were just me. It would be like an art walk downtown.
Okay.
So I remember doing this at, I don't even remember the place. I think I did it at Jake's a few times. But just kind of standing there and listening to people without them knowing I'm the artist. I've heard a lot of things, and I do take it into consideration. I like to hear people not understand abstract art. It's just like the conceptual art side, and going to art school, they kind of push like the concept behind art instead of like the like beauty of a painting. So it's like, I like that challenge of, not seeing the beauty in what's in front of me,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, you said earlier that with part of that like positive feedback loop, that sometimes you start to listen to the people who are like critiquing your art or who are observing it or like are taking it in. And sometimes that you make decisions on what your art is going to be based on that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, in those moments where you're sitting in the back of your own art show, are you listening for tips for things that you should continue to do that connect with people? Are you listening for feedback in general? Like, what is your ear tuned to in those moments?
I don't think anything in particular. I'm just kind of taking everything in and seeing like how people would react. And I go through phases, I went through a totally abstract phase with drips and different types of chemicals and whatever I could to get like a reaction on a canvas. And that doesn't make sense for people that are kind of trained to understand like the Western art. And then I've done shows with just like my wildlife work that's all like pretty aesthetically pleasing. So, it's kind of cool to see like that contrast and what people are drawn to. So those shows in particular, they were the beginning of my art career, which was like totally abstract. So there was like, I liked to just eavesdrop.
Yeah. Does that seem like a beneficial thing to kind of like come out the gates with as you're like an emerging artist, is something that's more abstract? Because it seems like having something like a lot of your paintings that are like a beautiful like teepee landscape like you just did, or your horses or something like that, it's easy for somebody who doesn't have maybe like a refined palette in art to understand and appreciate. But I would imagine that coming onto the scene while you're in an abstract phase could probably lead you to having to like develop some thick skin or develop like the muscle of explaining the concept behind it and like where your brain was at. So like, do you think that there's any benefit that that's what you kind of like emerged with?
Yeah, huge benefit. Yeah, and that was just right out of college where I took a whole semester writing my artist statement and like what I wanted people to see in my work, and I wanted it to be this like dance of looking up close, looking from far away, thinking kind of critically about the colors and what they might mean and what they meant to me at the time. And so I came out really, and I mean I did use like pretty colors and they would like look good and like above a couch still, but it was just a different type of art than the wild horses or the teepees and that. So
very Montana facing. Yeah.
Right.
I'm super curious about the time that you spent in Italy. You said that looking at these artists who are doing it full time, they're able to be fully themselves and kind of pursue these things was super pivotal for you. What did you expect to find going on that trip, and what were you surprised by as you were there?
That's a good question. So we went to the Venice Biennale, which is like the largest contemporary art exhibition in the world. So like there's different pavilions with artists from countries that would have this space, and they got to do whatever they wanted with the space.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I remember I was just kind of dumbfounded by this one artist that just left it.
What do you mean?
Just
empty?
The art was the emptiness.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was one with like I just remember like a glowing like LED light above a pink pool. It just kind of like challenged what my perception of art was, and just like being born and raised in Montana, seeing a lot of Western art. There's some cool art in Montana for sure, but just like questioning like what, art is everything. But like at that time I was like, what makes something art, and just seeing like these big artists doing totally abstract and like crazy things with their pavilions. I was like, and just like music blare. It was just like a different experience in every little pavilion. And that was just like so cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was so cool.
It seems like you've had an appreciation for a lot of different types of art. And I'm curious how your art has kind of like progressed since you started like doodling in notebooks when you're in elementary school. Like walk me through some of the progression. And I want you to walk me to it up until that point in Italy where it's like, holy shit, this might be so much different than everything I've even thought of before.
Okay. So yeah, just doodling, being a young kid, being able to focus through painting or doing like a drawing of what I was learning about, and then having like I have like such a visual memory. Okay. So like I would do like a little sketch to remember like science projects, Oh,
so it was like kind of part of a learning tool instead of like an escapism thing.
Sure.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then so I got to college and I have my degree in art education, which means I do every one of like the studio classes to kind of find what I love to do. So I did like ceramics, sculpture, you name it, new media, all of the art.
Okay.
Little avenues.
Yeah.
And then I was still kind of like undecided. I still was kind of in the art education mindset at this point, 3 years into college. And then my trip to Italy was when I was a junior, I'd say. So I was still kind of art brain, still just going through college. And then going to Italy, seeing all of the art there, I kind of learned what I want to do with my work and where my head was at with painting. I knew I wanted to be a painter. I just didn't know like how I wanted to be a painter.
Interesting. How did you find painting as the thing? And like, when did you find that?
So right after my trip to Italy, I came up with my kind of concept, and it was like making experiments happen on a canvas. So I was in my parents' garage and I was using whatever I could get my hands on, like WD-40, nail polish remover, you name it, like weed gone or some kind of like weed chemical, like weed killer.
Just in a hazmat suit.
Yeah, it should have been. Yeah, just like seeing what I could do. And it wasn't really like I wasn't using color. I was just seeing what kind of weird shit could happen on a canvas.
Wow.
Yeah. And making that like my piece. And then I got further into like wanting to like dissect nature's elements. So I did like a water study where I used like very fluid, and then I used blues. So then I would incorporate like colors that would kind of match with what I was going through mentally, you know?
Yeah.
And then I did a fire study where I like used flame and I used oranges, but then I like was like burning things, throwing it on the canvas and like doing like that type of stuff. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And at this time, are you still in school? Are you bartending?
I was bartending and in school.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Bartending in school and lighting shit on fire.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
At this time, one of the things that I struggled with, like even when I was in college, is it seemed like you, I kind of knew directionally where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to be in business. I didn't know which part of it. I didn't know any of that kind of stuff. But it actually kind of tormented me a little bit because I knew that I wanted to achieve these big things and own a business someday. And so I almost always felt like I was behind because I would see other people my age. Oh, this kid just exited for $1 billion, or this person just launched his business and he's making blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So I was always looking for a way to monetize something or get a new internship or get something like that. And it made it really difficult for me to kind of be present while I was in school because I was like halfway torn between I want to crush bush lights with my buddies on the weekend and also like all of the stuff that you see on Instagram about like, here are the 5 people you hang out with and you can start now and all this different stuff. So I'm curious for you, like, it was tormenting for me knowing what I wanted to do, but not being able to do it professionally yet. And I'm curious for you as you're doing these experiments and kind of going all these different directions. Did you have any sense of like pressure around someday I have to monetize this, or I hope somebody wants to buy something like this? Like, does that even cross your mind during this point? That
didn't cross my mind at that point.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you. I just kind of was in a flow state at that point, and I just kind of trusted my process and my future, and I didn't think too much about like making money at that point, you know?
Yeah.
Just kind of went with it and took the steps to make it my life.
Right.
So I was bartending and in school, but I was painting and I was doing all these experiments every second I could. So, yeah, and I was still making I wasn't like, I was bartending, I was making money, so I could afford my rent and stuff like that, but I wasn't thinking about like, I gotta monetize this, I gotta get rich on this. I was just
interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever did those thoughts ever creep in where you had to like check them a little bit and be like, dude, that's not the phase we're in, like let that go?
Maybe, yeah, I'm not sure.
But you're just like good to go to keep experimenting and stuff.
Yeah, kind of.
That's so interesting to me because I feel like that, like being able to spend that extra time when you're in school, when you're bartending, when you're still doing stuff outside of it. Like, I think a lot of people from the outside, it's like, so you mean you're working 24/7? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But I think that with a passion, it's like, that's the thing where when you're actually into it, it's like, fuck yeah, I'll stay up until 11, 12, 1, 2, whatever, doing this because I love it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, while objectively it could be seen as work because someday this is going to be a career.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it.
Right.
And so I'm curious for you, like, did you ever have that thing where you started to like see it as, oh, this is my side hustle, this is my whatever, or was it just like, I just freaking love doing this?
No, I just have always freaking loved doing it. Like, I just like have always like, even if it wasn't my job, I'd still be painting every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just the way that I like process life, and it's the way that I it's kind of just what I turn to. Like, you know, if I'm just at home, it's what I'll do. Okay. So it's kind of interesting that it's my work. Like people are like, do you want to go get a drink or something? I'm like, I have to work, but it's like, I'm not like, I'm painting. Yeah. I have to work. It is work, but it's really like not work. It's what I'd be doing if I was I don't know.
Do you feel like the Western brain, or like even maybe it's people our age, I don't know, do you think that they almost need that excuse to be able to accept it though?
Maybe. Yeah.
Like if you were to tell them I'm painting, they'd be like, fuck you, come get a beer.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like, I'm working, it's like, oh, okay.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You know?
I think that's a thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a hard thing for people to understand unless they felt that before.
Right. I agree. Yeah, but I do think I'm constantly working. Like even if I am on a vacation or something like that, I think like my artistic brain is constantly working. And if it's not like taking in scenery and like being inspired by it, it's like wanting to see other artists in their studios and where they make a living in another city. Yeah, so I do think I'm constantly working. And like even if I'm laying in bed at night, I'm looking at art inspiration and things that make me tick.
Okay. Is that ever a hard lens to see the world through?
Yeah. I mean, hard. I don't know.
I guess hard is relative.
Yeah.
I guess there seems to be something to me where, like, for example, my business brain, every time I walk into a coffee shop or a new thing, I'm always like, okay, well, how does this work? And I wonder what they're like monthly, blah, blah, blah. Like my business brain immediately goes to like, how does this work? How profitable must this be? Is this a fun business to run?
Right.
If your brain works that way through art,
okay,
but you're an artist, I wonder if it's ever difficult to look at something and instead of just being able to appreciate it as like, holy shit, that's beautiful, instead of look at it through a lens of like, how should I be inspired by this? Or how can I translate this to art? Like, is it ever difficult not being able to just appreciate something?
I think that goes kind of hand in hand. Like, I think like something that I can appreciate for its beauty is also me like seeing that beauty and thinking about how it inspires me, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Like if I'm at a coffee shop, like you said, and I see like it's a rainy day and someone's coffee is like in the window, I'll be like, oh, that's like aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I think I'm inspired by pretty much everything.
Okay. It almost seems like instead of being a tormenting kind of thing where it's like everything becomes work, it's almost like truly being able to see the world through rose-colored glasses.
It's like everything becomes work. It's like that meme where it's like, oh, life is blah, blah, blah. And it's like the other guy on the other side of the train. It's like, life is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That seems really cool because I don't know. I think it's very rare for people to be able to have, like you hear all the time, oh, I go on vacation and I can't turn my brain off from work, or I can't this and that and the other thing. That's got to be so cool to be like, I got to go on vacation. I was thinking about like my art the whole time, and there was so much extra that inspired me. And so like, it seems like there's really nothing that detracts from that inspiration or anything that you have to run from, I guess.
Right. I think it's just kind of the way that artists' brains are wired. You know, it's just like we have this filter and get to experience the world for like that beauty.
Yeah. It's interesting to me to think about you being in a position where you're like, your days are super full with school, with work and all of the things. And knowing that you love painting, spending a lot of your time for it, and then there being some moment where you're like, man, fuck bartending.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. Walk me through that day or that phase or that chapter where you were willing to take the thing that you loved and make it your business, make it your livelihood and the rest of it.
Yeah, like we were talking about that positive feedback thing. That was really big for me when I decided to go full time. I remember I got hired to do a mural up in Red Lodge, and I was just getting a lot of positive feedback. I don't know if it's just because it's more like art community based up there. But I think I was just talking to a lot of my regulars at work. I'm like, hey, I'm going to take this time off. I'm going to go do this thing. And I would get oh, do it. Like, good job. You got this. Mm-hmm. And then I would get up there and people would come see me and say, wow, that's really good. You know, like you could kind of do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss out on money every night. I don't want to that's risky, you know? And then I think I was just getting kind of burnt out of bartending and, just like that same cycle of, you know, the long shifts and the alcohol and, you know, that whole scene. Yeah. So I was just kind of like I think I was like 27 at the time. Okay. And I was like, I don't think I can bartend, you know, I can't do this for the rest of my life. My body would hurt after my shifts, you know, I'm like, I think I'm going to do this, you know, I think I'm going to quit. And everyone was like, yeah, I mean, like we said, what's the worst that's going to happen? You have this cushion of your teaching degree. You can always come back.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to do it.
Interesting.
And yeah, and I remember when I first went full time, it was hard. I was paying a lot of rent. I was living alone. I was paying a lot for my rent, and I was broke. Like, I was getting big Subway sandwiches and dividing it into like little sections for like my food of the day.
Meal prepping.
Yeah. So it was a grind, and I didn't have any commissions at the time. I was just really trusting myself and the universe. Really, I was like, we're gonna do this.
So you made the jump before you had commissions and sales and all that.
I was
kind
just
of stuff
painting. I was painting, and I had money saved up from being a bartender for so long. I'm pretty good at saving. That's one good thing about me.
Okay.
So yeah, I had some money saved up, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna do this. I was just working. I was just coming up with a body of work because I knew I had a show like in 5 months or something like that.
Interesting.
So I was just building up for the show, and I was like putting all my effort into these paintings because I'm like, oh, we either do it right now or we're going back to frickin' Rio Sabinas. And then I had a really great show after that. Okay. And so that kind of lit a fire under my ass, and I'm like, oh, you can do this, bitch. You got this. So then, and then it kind of has gone from there, and I would do like the art walks in downtown Billings bi-monthly. So I would have like every other month I'd have some kind of show to look forward to.
Okay.
And then I started to accumulate my commissioned work. So people would come to my shows. Oh, we like that. Can you do something above our centerpiece in this house? Can you come check out our interior, do something custom for this? And I was like, heck yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Was there a moment like the first time that you got a commission or somebody asking about it where you were like, holy shit?
Yeah, it still happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just, I'm honored to be able to do this for my job. Sometimes I pinch myself because I get a call from this family that has a amazing, beautiful house. And I'm going to be like, right when you walk in, that's going to be me. So it's still kind of like, I still kind of get imposter syndrome, when I'm like, oh, this is really like, this is going to be like my spot in your house. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm internally like, but I'm like playing it cool. I'm like, okay, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You get back in the car and just go. How has that imposter syndrome, is that something that has kind of like, you kind of like keep on pushing it back and back and back and back as you continue to get further into your career?
Yeah.
That maybe a commission that you'd freak out about, your first year in is something that now would be like fairly routine, or
right.
How has that kind of evolved for you?
Yeah, I think you just kind of get used to it. But like if I ever take a step back, I'm like, wow, But I think like as you get going, you're in that momentum, you're doing your paintings, you're going to people's houses, you're doing shows, you're putting things on. You're so busy. I'm just looking forward to like the next thing I got going on. Mm-hmm. Like I started to do it now. It's just like reflecting more, but it's just when you're that busy, you're just go, go, go. And then like sometimes it hits me and I'm like, wow, so it is like it's a progression. Like you get used to it, but there's still, I think I'll always have imposter syndrome. I think that's a thing with, doing what you love for your job.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially with art too, where we've had this conversation before that it is very subjective.
Right. Like
the same painting that is somebody prices for $250, somebody might price for $250,000 and they both sell. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious for you, like which pieces have felt the most like imposter syndrome for you as you've kind of progressed since you went full time?
Which pieces?
Yeah, like I think that there are some things where it's like pricing or saying yes to certain commissions or saying yes to things that are out of your comfort zone or saying yes to certain galleries. Like which of the things have you had to maybe like step out of your comfort zone is a little bit easier of a way to go?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think every time I step out of my comfort zone, I get better. And I think that's like a good like challenge for me is to step outside of my comfort zone. So say I'll have like this commission that sounds really tough. That's when I'll say, yeah, but that before I'd be like, oh, I'm scared. Like I hadn't ever done a mural and I was working with the Downtown Billings Alliance office and they're like, you should do a mural. And I'm like, hell no. I don't want to do a mural. That sounds like too much work. I don't know how like climbing up on that shit. I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then I went home and I was like, I should really do that mural, why not?
Am I being a little bitch about this?
Yeah, I was being a little bitch. So I think it's just like moments like that where even like doing this podcast, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a podcast, but I think like this will help me grow and build confidence. And that's really what it comes down to, is like having that confidence to do the uncomfortable things that you don't really want to do. But after you do it, you're like, wow, that made me better.
Interesting. It's almost like reframing it as a growth opportunity instead of something scary.
Uh-huh. And that took me a while to get to. And I think like I said, it really stems from like having confidence in yourself and your work and what you're doing every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that confidence is something that has to be built, though.
Right.
I think that there's a line between confidence and delusion. And that line is probably actually having the proof that you've done what you said you were going to do.
But I think it takes a little bit of delusion to like do it. I think you have to be a little bit delulu to like pull through. Put
that shit on a t-shirt.
Bars.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
you gotta wing it.
Right.
You gotta just do it and trust yourself and like trust that little voice inside your head that's like, do it. This is what you want to do. This is what you want to do. Yeah. I've always had that little voice. It's like, this is your passion. So you might as well like not silence that little voice and go work at 8 to 5 and feel like you're dying inside every day because you're not at home creating.
Yeah. For somebody who that voice isn't quite loud enough yet, what kind of advice or what kind of like reflections on your own story would you give them to hopefully help that voice be a little bit louder, where it's like, just do this thing?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, well, I think it comes in like steps, and it's just like, it could be like making like a post or just like putting it out there like on social media, or reaching out to like your local coffee shop and maybe getting some things like on display. Like in my case, talking about art. So just like getting past that hump of like not wanting to show your work. It's just like getting it out there is huge. A lot of people are like, oh, my stuff's not good enough. I'm like, no, it is good enough. It's just like, who's to say what's good, what's not? So I think it's just like getting it out there and having people react to it, or just like see it, take it in. Like maybe they'll go home and think about it. You never know.
Interesting.
So it's just like, that's the first step. And then that voice will get louder, I think. And then you like start to like, you'll get some positive feedback. You'll get some negative feedback. That's just part of life. Mm-hmm. So then I think it's kind of like a snowball effect from there, when it'll spark something regardless. And then, you could even go home and be like, that's not for me, then it could be. But I think in most cases, it's going to be like motivating and make you want to create more and do more. And
Yeah, I think, have you read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? So one of my favorite concepts from that book is that when you want something bad enough, the universe conspires to give it to you.
Right.
And I think that so much along the lines of what you're saying is like, by putting your art out there, by starting to like release it to the public and let go of that like perfectionist, I have to hoard this until it's perfect sort of thing. True. You're like putting this thing out there into the world where it's like, I am an artist. Mm-hmm. And so people start to recognize your art in different places. They start to recognize you as like, oh, you're that artist. Mm-hmm. And even though in your own brain, you might be an accountant who does art on the weekends and the nights, other people start to see you in this light where it's like, oh, you're that artist, you're that artist, you're that artist. And I think that might give something very positive to somebody who's waiting to make that jump, because it's like, oh, the world is starting to see me as being this thing. Like, I'm worthy of being this other thing. I just need to put it out there more.
Totally.
And it seems like having a thing, like for you, it sounded like there was like this one art show where it's like, I got to build my body of work so I can do this show. It sounds like that's been super useful for you as far as like the beginning of your career, having that drive to like have to do something. Yeah. And I'm curious if you think it's important to set a due date or set like a thing to build towards.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it is kind of, if I don't give myself some sort of deadline, I'll just rework a piece to its death. I'll have like so many layers, and it'll just be like turned to like rubbish.
It's 3D, okay?
3D. Yeah, it is 3D. And you can make it something, but I just overwork things if I work on them too long. So I give myself some sort of deadline. And yeah, and I think it's just like having that type of like discipline too. You know, you might have to pull an all-nighter before. And I procrastinate like a mofo. So like I'm so familiar with that. But it's just I don't know. It's just the way that my brain works. And I think it could be kind of relative to other artists in that way.
Yeah.
Of having a deadline and giving yourself those.
It's like giving yourself like parameters to like for saying when you're done.
Right.
Walk me through like how you manage that in your brain when it's like, okay, at some point I just have to like take my hands off of this and be like, okay, here it is.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
It's tough. And it's just like I teach sip and paints too. And I deal with this a lot with people. Like if I do more, I'm going to ruin it. And I'm like, well, one of the hardest parts of painting is knowing when to say when, you know. When to stop, when it's complete. Like just because we're here for 2 hours doesn't mean you have to paint the whole 2 hours. And that's where I had a hard time when I first started off. Like I was like, I'm going to be a full-time artist. I'm going to paint 8 to 5. And then I would be like, I can't paint 8 to 5 because then I'm going to overwork it and I'm going to mess it up. And it would have looked better at 10 a.m. than it does at 5 p.m. You know what I mean? So that's just like, and you sometimes just have to put it away. And like, it might feel like it's like counterproductive for you not to be working on that piece, but you just have to like, for your own sake and your eyes and your mental health, you got to put that shit away or else you're going to overthink it and overwork it and just like do too much.
How did you have to learn that lesson? Did you have to overwork quite a few or how did that go?
Oh, I'd say I still overwork things.
Okay.
You know, I just like, I'm on the clock right now. I'm trying to do like a Monday through Friday type thing just to have like a little bit of structure. But like, even if I'm working, you don't have to be painting to be like on the clock. You can be thinking about it. You can just take a step back and look at it and you're still working. I mean, that's still part of being a full-time creative. Like you can just sit there, you're still working, but you're not working it to death, you know? Right. So I think I still struggle with it and just knowing when to say when. And it's kind of hard to even teach that because, I mean, you could push it and then you could make it better. It's kind of like a gamble because you could really like go for it and do it. And then you could like also like mess it up. Yeah.
Like it might be a B+ at 2 hours and then an F for the next 8 hours and then an A+ on hour 9, 10, 11.
Totally. That just happened with my latest commission. So it still happens to me. And I think like, and I'm pretty like fresh in the artist scene, you know, I'm still young. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just kind of something that comes with the job. And I think over time you'll start to build that confidence and know more about when you want to say when, but I think there's always going to be like that doubt and I could make this better or I could make this worse. And you have to kind of be in that like mindset. You can't just paint because you're painting. You have to be like in that creative flow to like get there.
Yeah.
So that's also
that's one of the things that I've almost always struggled with is figuring out, like I should honestly have this question on everything that I ever look at, like mirrors, my car, like my phone, everything. But it's just like, what does done look like?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, all of this week, I haven't stopped working before 8:30 p.m. a single day this week. And like even to last Sunday. And a lot of times it's because it's like, oh, well, if I just get this and this done, or it's almost like continuing to paint when I don't need to.
Right.
And then I'll like wake up the next morning and be like, oh, dude, I could have just got that shit done today.
Right.
Like nobody bothered me because like it didn't have to get done last night.
Right. And yeah, that concept translates like at almost every job. You know?
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to ask you is like, I think that very much is a muscle that you have to train, is figuring out like, how do I make sure that I'm not overworking my work, overworking myself? And I think that it takes a lot of testing maybe to do that.
Right.
And I'm curious for you, like what kind of experimentation maybe have you had to do with your schedule or your creative process to kind of find that pocket that fits well with you?
Yep. Also a good question. I had to figure out when I was most like creative. Like, I'm not a morning person. I'm not going to wake up and force myself to create when I don't even want to talk, you know? Like, I'm like, I don't want to talk for a while. Yeah. So I had to, you know, I think I had to develop somewhat of a routine, even though I don't like routine. I had to get to where I could figure out when I was going to be the most creative and at what time and what leads me to like get into that creative state. And I think it's like spending a little time, like I wake up, I try to journal every day just to like get my mind right, go to the gym, do some kind of physical activity. And then it's like later in the day when I feel like I hit that, like I'm ready to create. And then it'll take me into the night, or I'll just work like 4 hours and call it a day. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of is depends on the weather for me. I paint a lot outside. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's also just like so many factors and like what's going on in my like personal life and my social life. And like I said, the way that I like process my life is through painting. So I could be going through a lot and feeling super creative, and I could be just kind of lollygagging. Not like it feels like I'm the most creative when there's like a lot of turmoil going on in my life. Like sometimes I like want shit to happen because I'm like, oh, this is gonna make a good painting.
Interesting.
Toxic, but I mean, it's like what I mean.
I got a show coming up. I need to fuck some things
I need some heartbreak.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Or if there's like something going on, like I just like will come home and paint. If I just went to a party and I didn't like it, I'll go home and paint, you know, like. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious for you if you've ever been hard on yourself for when you want to create, because it's something that has been a challenge for me, is trying to figure out how to ignore all of the noise of get up at 4 a.m., hit your cold plunge. Your most productive hours are right in the morning, so get the most important shit done right then. And
for you?
No, it's just like I hear so much noise in this like hustle culture, you know, business bro bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's taken quite a bit of testing and like experimenting with different schedules and different like pacing of my day. And I've like had to just try a bunch of different stuff to kind of figure out a flow that works.
For sure.
And I'm curious for you if you've ever felt a certain pressure to, like you said earlier, like work an 8 to 5 or set your schedule up a certain way so that you can like check some kind of box of being a full-time artist or being creative. Like, has that ever been a struggle for you, or how have you been willing to like do that testing?
Yeah, it's a struggle, and I still struggle with it. But like I said earlier, I feel like I'm always working. Like I'm always, whether I'm in front of a canvas or shopping, or I don't know. I just feel like I'm kind of always working. So I was really hard on myself. Like you got to paint 6 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And then I was like, no, you actually don't. That's when I was like overworking my paintings a lot. And I was just working. I thought I had to work. I had to be painting for it to count as me being a full-time painter, you know? But, that's just something that came. And I mean, I've been full-time for just over 2 years now. So it's not like I have like 10 years under my belt. I'm just like, I'm figuring things out as I go. So, yeah, I definitely like still feel that pressure. And most of my friends like have schedules and full days of work. And so that's where it's hard for me, because I'm working a lot of Sundays, Saturdays. I'm like working weird hours, and that's kind of how I justify it. I'm like, oh, I'm working weekends. You guys don't work weekends.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a challenge, but you, like I said, you just have to kind of like listen to that inner voice and trust yourself. And I think I'm pretty like, I'm a strict boss, you know.
Interesting.
I'm kind of strict with I don't really, I don't know. I just like make myself, I don't really take days off, just because I have a lot of work to do. Like that would make me feel shitty if I just took a day off when I wasn't sick or didn't have to take a day off, you know?
Yeah.
But that's just me being motivated because I love what I do.
Yeah.
So
I had this, I don't know, I wouldn't say a vision, but maybe a
vision.
I had a vision. I had this illustration maybe pop up in my brain of like putting your passion and the crossfires of your profession, where it's like you've got this sweet little innocent thing that's like pure and it's its own thing, and it's just like this energy that's just super light. And then you've got the profession, which so much of that comes with it, like, you know, can you survive? Are you going to be able to, you know, be successful and do all these different things? There's so much pressure with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that it's almost like putting your passion in the crossfires of your profession when you decide that you're going to do it full time, because you might end up in a position where it's like, fuck, now I don't get to hang out with my friends. Now I don't get to do X, Y, Z. Now I'm in charge of all these other things that originally weren't even part of me painting in the first place. Like now I have to do these shows. Now I have to get commissions. I have to do outreach. I have to do accounting. Like it's all these different things. So I'm curious, as somebody who doesn't really take days off and has a super full schedule with things, how do you keep that passion part alive and not let the business part kind of like snipe your passion out of the entire thing?
I mean, that's the question of the century, really. I mean, that's a very valid point. And I think, like I said, I'm still only 2 years into doing this full time. Who's to say how I'm going to feel 10 years in? If I'm just like doing the same thing in terms of like getting these commissions, putting on shows. Right now, I don't feel any sort of burnout, and I'm thankful and I'm lucky to have that. But if this is, you know, my whole life, who's to say how I'm going to feel when I'm 45 years old? You know, I'm hunching over, painting all day. Like I need massages all the time, you know, like, I don't know. I think that that's very valid. And I think artists do kind of burn out, and it's a normal thing to talk about, you know? And I feel like even now I have like, I've been working so hard for so long. I need to take a break. Like I need a day off, but, just like away from the easel, away from my paintbrushes, just to like kind of rot in bed, just to like have that separation. I have a home studio, so I am always surrounded by my work. So that's another thing. Like I'm always looking at my work. I think having that like home studio separation is important. I'm gonna work towards that. But right now I'm like saturated, you know? And so I could see, I mean, I have this strong passion. I love what I do. But I could see that getting like, oh shit, I can't look at, like, I got to take my eyes off of my paintings for once. Cause I'll be even on my couch looking up at my like piece above my couch. And I'm like, oh, that could be tweaked. I'm like, oh, you're like, don't worry about it right now. Like, you know what I mean?
Knowing that you've got your easel in the next room, being like, I could just fix this.
I could do
quick.
it. I do that right now. So I'm like, that would be nice to have that type of separation. I think that would like not stop my chances of burnout, but like lower the, I don't know, just having that like kind of like a work, like just going to work, working and then clocking out, coming home, like having a sort of like normal home life versus like supplies, paint everywhere, my dog like tripping over my paintings, all that stuff. So just I don't know.
Jax is stoked for you to get a new studio.
He's like, get out of here. I have paint all over my fur.
Seriously. Has there been anything so far that you think has pushed out that burnout for you? Like anything that you do to kind of like foster that creativity and still kind of enjoy what you do now?
Well, I mean, I think like I have just been born with this like ability to create and kind of like alchemize my feelings into paintings, and just that's just the way that I operate, really. So, I don't know. Good question. I'm nowhere near burnout right now, knock on wood.
We'll take it. It seems like a funny thing too, because like even like the concept of burnout, like knowing that other people do it.
Oh no, I've talked to so many artists that I'm like, I couldn't do that anymore.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's funny to think though that like you're not burnt out now, but it's almost like pre-burnout, thinking about having it in the, like, oh fuck, someday I might be burnt out. Yeah. It's like, can we just enjoy the fact that we're not for a little bit? You know, like we've got this creeping thing in the back of our mind always.
True. Yeah, but I think it's just like, I really kind of try to prioritize like getting out of Billings and getting out of my studio. And I think that will be important long-term for me in my career to like I said, like I'm always working. But if I'm not near my work, then I can like work in a different way. You know what I mean?
Like doing murals or shows out of town or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. How has that helped you with the ones you've done so far?
Well, I think traveling helps everything. You know, I think you just learn so much from being in other places. And I think that will help you grow in whatever you're doing, honestly. I think it just makes you learn and it makes you appreciate coming home too and coming back to your routine. I think like that switch up is very vital to job, like just having like a full time, like a career. So, yeah, I just have to trust that, my inspiration will find me where I need it to find me and when I need it to find me. And that's like what keeps me going.
Mic drop.
Bars.
On top of it. Yeah.
Back on top.
The travel thing really gets me because I feel like almost inevitably, like my team always knows when I'm going to travel. It's like, okay, well, he's going to work his ass off for like a week or two to make sure that there's like nothing on the plate when he travels. Then he's going to come back and be like, all right, we're hitting, no, not stressed, like ready to go.
Oh,
like,
motivated.
Here's what we're going to change.
Okay.
We got to work harder on this. We got to quit fucking around with that. Like we got to do blah, blah, blah.
True.
And it's so funny because like there's a lot of times that to me, travel feels like it's necessary as like an unplug, or I'll travel for a project or something like that. But it never really seems like it fits. You know, like it always seems like there's something going on where it's like, oh, I probably shouldn't take a trip right now. Or, oh, I just got really busy. Like, I wish that it was in 2 weeks or something like that. It's like it never really feels like it's the perfect time. But almost always I come back and the things that were making me say, oh, it's not perfect, or I should go in 2 weeks instead of right now or whatever, are the things that I come back and be like, dude, why am I so stressed about these all the time? Like when I'm in the business or when I'm sitting too close to like my routine, it's almost hard to see which things are time wasters or which things I care too much about, or like, it's just like I'm too close to it. And so that for me is, it's like one of the main benefits of travel is it like allows me to zoom out enough to be like, what kind of stuff am I doing right now?
I totally relate to that. Yeah. That's the same with my brain and my work and like taking that breather.
Have you had any like particular epiphanies or anything where like there were big shifts after you traveled?
I don't know about like big shifts, but I think there's shifts after every time I travel.
Interesting.
Yeah, because a goal of mine when I'm in another place is to just like see art, and that could be just like street, like driving on the street and looking at the murals in the town, you know. And I think every situation like that, and every time I'm out of town and I'm like totally engulfed in this new place and new scenery, I think that makes me better, and I think that makes me more motivated to like come back and take what I learned and turn that into something that I can translate into my art, and talk about, you know?
Yeah.
Like could be colors, could be like a technique I see, it could be like sand on a beach. I throw sand on a painting.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so cool that you can like go somewhere and not know what you're going to get out of it too. Right. Like to have that general lens of like, I'm going to come back with some version of inspiration, something that's going to happen with my art, but I'm just not sure yet. Yeah. And like that really, a trip is actually just like your Italy trip was like the entire reason that I started a business in the first place. I got sent to a trade show in Paris. We did it in the Louvre for 6 days. It was super cool. It was like this medical device thing. And while I was over there, I was like, well, I already came this far and I'm on company dime right now. So I'm just going to extend it by 2 weeks and go see like some family friends. And I had a friend playing football in Switzerland at the time. Cool. But what I learned was in the middle of that summer leading up to that trade show, I was working like probably 12 to 14 hours a day, every day. And I was doing it because the agency that I was working at, I was really trying to show that I cared and I wanted to be paid more and all this different stuff. So I was like, I'm really just going to grind this summer. Yeah. And once I got to Europe, my motivation changed a little bit because I was like, during these 2 weeks, what I want to be doing is going to coffee shops with my buddies and going on these hikes and checking out pubs and like all of this different stuff. And so really quickly, I was like, how can I get all of my stuff done as quickly as possible so that I can go do these things? And what I realized is that during that time in like 2 or 3 hours of focused work in a coffee shop, I could get done what was taking me 12 hours when I was back home, because I was just like, I was looking at the time that it took and the time that I was putting in instead of like the things that I was getting done.
Right.
And so I came back from that trip being like, okay, well, I'm not going to go to the office anymore because I can just work for 3 hours and I don't need to be at the office. And then if I'm only working 3 hours, then I'm just not going to work any more than that. And like, I started to get this very entrepreneurial, like, okay, well, how much can I like refine these inputs to get the maximum amount of output?
Yeah.
And I realized I didn't need to work for anybody anymore.
That's what I was saying earlier about like being dialed in. You can work less when you're dialed in because you're like in that in that flow state, you know, where you're like really zoned in, like motivated, you know what I mean?
Right.
Instead of taking 12 hours, however long you're working, kind of dinking around, you know, doing your own little thing.
Yeah.
Like you just have to have that focus. You can get it done faster, and then you can have your day to go to the pub and go do all hikes and all of that stuff. So
for sure.
Yeah.
How do you, like, what does that flow state feel like for you? And you talked a little bit about your routine before, but I'm curious, like, if you have any tricks or rituals or anything that like gets you into that flow state.
I think like it just kind of comes to me, you know. I don't think there's like really any sort of something I could do before or after to like get there. I think it just like I have an idea and I have to go like puke it out, you know, just have like it just comes to me.
Okay.
And so I think there are things that I can do to like get dialed in for the day, but I also think like if it's not there, then I can't force it to be there. And so I can work on something else. Like if I don't have it in me to paint, I could get things ready. I could gesso a canvas. I could draw things out. I could like make myself have an easier day when it comes to that day when I'm like ready to get it out there.
Okay.
But I think like that's what I'm trying to get to the point of, like getting everything ready, and when it hits I can go do it.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like when the creativity hits me.
Okay.
And I do like, and it's different because I have so much commissioned work that's not like necessarily coming from my brain. Like it technically is in a way, but I'm doing like research on other thing, like whatever the subject matter is. If it's like a bison, I'm looking up bison, I'm learning about them, which isn't necessarily like coming from my brain and my heart. It still is, but it's in kind of a different way. But when I'm feeling like I just had all this like dental work done, I was in pain, and I was like, I just should have laid there. I should have like gone to sleep, whatever. I should have rested, but I was like, I want to fucking paint all day long. I just I painted the coolest pieces. I was like, this is like what happens to me. Like, I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like something has happened for me to be like, yeah, I'm feeling it, you know?
Interesting.
So like, yeah, I was in like pain. I titled this painting, well, at first I titled it Pain because I was like, fuck, my tooth hurts. But then I was like, the only way out is through. Like I had to sit in that, you know, you have to like sit in it. Could be like heartbreak. It could be whatever. Like you have to sit in that and then like do something about it. For me, that's pain. You know, that's like how I worked through it. You know, I just like, and it's a really cool painting. I'm excited to show it. It's just like, I was in so much pain at the time. I was on hydros, whatever, like all these freaking fucking pills. And I was just like, made a cool painting.
Interesting.
I was like holding my brushes and I was like, let's do something. You know, I could have had like my spouse or something there. I had my kids there. Like, I'm just not at that point. I just was holding my brushes. I'm like, you guys are my family.
Yeah.
Let's do something.
Yeah. You guys want to hang out today? Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think that it seems like there's something about the fact that when you don't have that flow state, when you're not feeling creative, that you do things to like prime yourself for when you are? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, well, if the thing isn't here right now, then I'm just going to make sure that I'm in as good of a position for when it shows up next time. It's almost like keeping your house clean for like if your friends happen to come over, like we're just going to be good. I'm curious though, is there something about like, it seems like that's almost like honoring your flow state by being like, I'm not going to abuse it by pretending it's here when it's not. Yep. Or I'm not going to try to force it. Does any of that feel like you have to do something to honor whatever that flow state is for it to continue to show up for you?
I think honoring it is like showing it respect, honestly. And it's just like thinking of it as this like entity or energy that comes and flows, you know, like it comes in waves, and like being well prepared, best prepared for that to come is kind of like ideal. It's like a thank you, you know, it's just like, we're ready if you're ready, so bring it. So like, just like what I said, like prepping my canvases, getting all that shit ready, getting my paints ready, like all out, getting my colors prepped. Even though I'm not there yet, I have it ready for when that strikes. I go run. I go running.
Yeah. Coming straight out of surgery. I'm ready. Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like respect to whatever source is giving me that drive. And so I think that like a big part of what I do is just like honoring like that energy and like that higher power, whatever it is that's coming and like speaking to me, like go paint, you know, or it could be me, it could be my inner voice. So
have you ever gotten out of touch with that, or feel like that relationship?
For sure.
Talk to me about that.
That was when I was like a little hippie.
Okay.
You know, that was when I was like, I want to travel. I want to work at music festivals. Fuck art. I want to go see the world. I want to be a little music girl, you know, and that's when I was like super out of touch with myself and my creative process, which is like myself and my purpose. And I think veering from that like had all sorts of like negative effects in my life, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was it like leaving the art thing? Like, was there something where it felt like you were running from it, or what did that decision look like?
I think it was always kind of in me. I was just like, I'm young. I want to travel. I want to go live wherever, live in a tent, do whatever I wanted to do. I just kind of put it on the back burner, and I didn't realize how important it was for me and like my emotions and my processing things. And I just kind of like was like in this phase where I'm like, fuck it. I want to do whatever I want. I want to go do this. And, it just was like me losing myself for a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it was good. And I think like looking back, it has led me to where I am today. But I think that was just like, it was like me taking a break from my purpose. And I think that's kind of vital to like who I am and where I am. But it was just, it was a hard time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Was it hard to get back in touch with it when you decided it was finally time to come back to it?
It was just like, we've been waiting for you. Where you been?
Yeah.
Where you been?
All right. Tell me some stories and then let's get back to this.
Yeah.
Huh. Did it, as you were exploring that side and like kind of like living whatever that story was for you that felt like it needed to get checked off?
Yeah.
Did the art thing call at you, or did it feel like you were purposely setting that aside to like go do this other thing for a little bit?
I can actually remember I was in, I think like Bend, Oregon or something like that. And I was looking at the murals and I was like, oh, I could not stop looking at this mural. It was just like in my face. Like we were at some cafe and it was just like there and I couldn't stop looking at it. And I was just like, maybe that's a sign. I don't know. But I was just ignoring it. Like I was ignoring it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a crazy thing that like, cause you can't really escape art.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that's like this like thing that's just kind of like, like hanging out, kind of hanging out in the shadows, being like, hey, dude, over here.
Yeah. You know, I was in my younger 20s. You're supposed to like go do whatever. You're supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to like learn what you want to do and who you want to be. And that's like my validation for like why I was that way. And I think like that phase is important for everyone that's like doing their own like thing, you know, like whatever that may be. I think just like having that experimentation phase and like maybe it is like ignoring your purpose and like no, like I knew I should be painting, but I'm like I don't want to. Like I just want to have fun right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about that. And that's what I did. And that's what I mean, it was cool. I got to see a lot of cool things, you know, like I can't discount that. I saw a lot of cool areas, a lot of cool landscapes and art and you name it. But I'm happy to be where I'm at now.
That's one of the things that I find to be really interesting because I almost think that like looking at your story or using it as an example, it seems like if you didn't take the time to do that, if that really did call at you at the time, if you were to be like, no, my passion is that I'm a painter, my calling is to paint, I'm just going to set this aside.
Yeah.
It seems like if you don't say yes to those things in those moments, down the line at some point, it's going to start eating at you, where it was like you never went and did the thing. You never went and traveled. You never went and saw anything. You didn't go explore whatever that side of you was.
True.
And then when you really start to look at it, it's like, well, why didn't you do that? It's like, oh, because I was supposed to be painting.
Mm-hmm.
So then painting gets put in this position of being the villain, where it was like, oh, I didn't go do X, Y, Z because I was painting. Yeah. And I think that happens in a lot of different ways for people. It's like, I didn't go do X, Y, Z because I was in this relationship, or because I was working this job, or because like whatever the thing is. And then you see that play out 20 years later.
So true.
Or somebody goes and blows their life up, or that, you know, whatever.
Because they never had that phase.
Yeah.
Like getting that out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that phase can be a million different things.
Some
people go ski bum, some people go on concert tour, like whatever the thing is, you know. But it's I think that's one thing for me. Like I still think that I would have spent more time traveling and like doing maybe a little bit less in my early 20s as far as like professionally and stuff like that. And it's funny, even being 26 now, I look at it and I'm like, I caught myself for the first time. God, I was overseas somewhere. I was in Italy. And the way that I would see a lot of cities when I was first traveling, because I first went to Europe when I was 22, I would look at a city and I'd be like, man, I wonder what it's like to spend your early 20s here.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd be in Rome and I'd be like, wow, it seems like such a cool place. And, you know, like the party scene is also like embedded in the deepest history, which is with the best food and all these things. I'm like, how cool would it be to spend some of your formative years here? Yeah. And then I do the same thing in Barcelona, and then in Nice, and then in Germany. And just like, that was kind of my filter that I look at the world through. Yeah. And I went to Sardinia, I think a year ago now. And I remember being there and being like, wow, I wonder what it'd be like to spend your early 20s. Oh, fuck, my early 20s are gone. Oh. And it was the first time that I realized that I was like, something that I wanted to do in my life that was kind of something that was like fairly important to me, where I was like, I feel like I learned so much about myself by living in a different culture at this specific phase of my life. I was like, dude, that is literally gone now. Yeah. And so it's something that I'm like still trying to kind of come to terms with now. Is like, okay, now that I have this business, now that I have a podcast, now that I have all these different things that I truly care about. Yeah. Which things do you let go? Which things do you make time for? Or which things you just hope don't fester and become an issue 5, 10, 20 years from now? Right. You know, do you feel like you've had any other things up to this point where that have been calling to you? Or do you feel like you've done a pretty good job of just like saying yes to things in the right moments?
I think like I have been pretty like intuitive my whole life and knowing like what's right at the time. But I have those same thoughts of like, damn, I wish I could have been here when I was like in my like young prime. But also like the term prime like is not just your young 20s. Like I feel like now I'm 30 and I feel like I'm younger. I feel like I'm back to like my teenage self, you know? So who's to say that like your younger 20s are like the time that you should be like exploring and doing this? Yeah, you might have all this stuff now here, like your podcast and like your kind of like your home, like all the things you're doing. But like who's to say that like this isn't your prime, like your late 20s, your early 30s, you know? And you never know what's going to happen, you know? And like just like taking care of your health and being able to be like a younger person in another country and like still kind of thriving. Like it doesn't have to be like your younger 20s. I think that's like a common like thing going on. Like as long as you're kind of doing what you love, who's to say like when your prime is for being in like this certain lively area.
That's true. Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at that. It seems like you've been able to follow that intuition that you're talking about quite a bit, whether it was like saying yes to traveling abroad or saying yes to pausing your art career or jumping all in on your art career. Like, what does it take to be able to make those really big changes or say yes to like really big life things like that when your intuition kicks in? Because I'm sure that your brain goes like, yeah, but logically, you know.
I don't know. I just kind of trust like the divine timing of my life and like letting things play out and trusting like my decisions and knowing that in the moment, like, I don't know if this is going to be the right decision. Like I either like say yes or say no, say yes or say yes, but like, and just like kind of go with like whatever outcome comes from that. You know, it's just like, I don't have very moments where I'm kind of like indecisive. I don't really know what I'm going to do. Like I just like do it and then like follow what happens after that. I just got this tattoo that says divine timing.
Ooh, I like
so
it.
it's like I look at my watch, oh, it's divine timing.
Don't
worry about the time. It's up to the universe, it's up to God.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's the thing that I love is like when people can just take action and then figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Like that whole like analysis paralysis is real.
Yeah,
where you spend so much time trying to figure out like what are all of the different ways that this could end, which one is better than that one, and the whole thing. And then you find yourself a year down the line and you've done nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a lot of times like, okay, cool. You've got all of these different ideas about how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Chances are none of those are actually going to play out like that. So just like pick one and go.
Yeah.
My videographer I think he's 19, he's either 19 or 20. I was going through a decision that we had to make in the business and he goes, my mom always tells me this thing. And like, as much as I hate to admit it, it's great advice. He's like, my mom always tells me when I'm trying to go through something, instead of trying to make the right decision, just make a decision and make it the right one. Bars. And just go. And I was like, oh, your mom's a genius.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah. Because I think you can spend so much time overthinking like the what ifs, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. And that's just a waste, You kind of just have to be in the motion, like the movement of like where you're going. And if it's not what you want, backtrack. Yeah. It's okay. And I think I'm blessed because I come from a father and mother who are so chill. Like my dad is the most chill dude. He's kind of like, I think that's where I got it. He's just like very in the moment. Just kind of trusts his flow state. And I think that's pretty big and just kind of trusting yourself in that inner voice, like I said earlier.
Yeah, it's a really good inspiration to have.
Yeah.
So now that you've had 2 years being full-time, you've gotten huge commissions, you've been recognized for your work, like you've really had a hell of a 2 years since you went full-time. What is your intuition pulling you towards now? Or what are the things that you're excited about, thinking about?
I get really excited thinking about like having a studio space, or maybe like multiple studio spaces is kind of like my goal for like my career is to be able to like go, maybe it's the ocean, maybe it's a city. Maybe it's like the top of a tall building. I don't know. Okay. But I think just like going and creating somewhere else and like either bringing that back to Montana or having an exhibition in another city.
Okay.
I think that's like pretty up there in my list, but also I'm just kind of trusting like my life and just like taking it day by day. I don't want to get too caught up in like where I could be in 5 years, That question's always kind of intimidated me in some way. I just try to live like day by day and get things done in the most timely and like effective manner and just like go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that question's always gotten me too. Yeah. When people are like, "What's your 1, 3, 5 year plan?" It's like,
true.
So a lot of times, the furthest out I can look is like a 1 year plan.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And it's
right.
Much like you though, when you were talking earlier about how lately you've been reflecting and going back and being like, you get caught up in deadline, and trying to be present and all this stuff, but looking backwards and being like, "Whoa, we've kind of done a lot of really cool shit."
Yeah.
I think that that's something that's super important for people that do find themselves a little bit on that like hamster wheel, if you will, of like always having something that kind of needs to be done right now.
Yeah.
Is going back and looking how far you've come. And I'm curious for you, like, it sounds like that's a little bit of a newer thing for you.
Uh-huh.
And instead of being somebody who's consistently looking forward, being somebody now who's willing to like look back and kind of reflect on as far as you've come, how has that changed your outlook on the career that you've had, or maybe the career that you're going to have going forward?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I have journaled actually since like 2012, pretty much.
That's so cool. That's got to be so cool to go back and read.
Yeah. And I think that's where I've been like, looking at I've dug them up the other day, and I've just been kind of like looking and reading like this day 5 years ago. I can look back and see kind of what I was doing and kind of like track my growth that way. And I think like I'm so glad that I decided to like journal at a young age, because I like will have like, I'm really kind of big into manifesting, and I'll like write things. I'm like, I am going to be an artist. Like I want to be known. Like I want people in Montana to like recognize my style. And I wrote that down like freaking 400 times one day. I'm like,
wow.
I just like we said, like putting that out into the universe and like being that, like embodying that energy and motivation is like so big for me. And something that I've been doing really a lot recently is just like looking at like even Instagram. Like I have had my art page for a long time, and I would just kind of throw like weird random things on there, but just like looking back at like 2014, what I was painting like a jellyfish at one time, and I'm like, that's kind of cool and weird to look back on like those projects that I was doing, because I've been doing this for so long. Yeah, it's just like now that it's starting to like build momentum, is like people are catching on to me, but like this is my life, this is what I've been doing, right? You know, so that's been kind of interesting to like track my growth. But yeah, and just like becoming a little bit older and just like looking back on like my younger 20s and like I remember I don't really like to dress up, kind of a tomboy type girl, but when I first started doing like my art shows, I would wear like heels and dresses just because my mom's like, you gotta look good, and I'm like, no, really, I don't really want to, but like
let the art look good, Mom. Shit, I don't have to.
So I remember like me in like these heels and like trying to like, I don't know, it's just kind of cool to like track that, you know, and just like being so excited. Like one of the questions in this is like, what's the most exciting time for you, like looking back? And it's just like when I was first starting off, like inviting all my friends and family to come like look at my shows. Like this is before I went full time, so like when I was in college, we would do like exhibitions and stuff like that, where I would like invite my closest people, and I'd get all dressed up, and all my aunts and uncles and grandparents would come, and like I'd get to show off my work, and that shit was so exciting, you know? Yeah. So just like looking back and like having that like 8 years ago, it's so crazy to think that's already been 8 years, and just looking at like my confidence growing, my style, I'm more comfortable. I'm not wearing heels that cut off my circulation. I'm not in a dress that I don't feel comfortable. Like I'm doing what I love, and I'm wearing things that are comfortable to me. Yeah. And just like tracking that growth is really like caused me to like stop and reflect and being like, damn, you're really kind of doing this.
Yeah. It's so cool because it's like, I feel like journaling and tracking your growth in a lot of those ways, it's like, it's something that you have to do now, just trusting that you're going to appreciate it someday. Because there's so many days where it's just like, I don't have time, or I don't want to, or I'm not feeling inspired. But you in 5 years is going to be so stoked that you decided to do that. So true. And I've got these like gaping holes in when I decided to journal and like all these different things. Yeah. And I think that it's so cool because you being able to go back and reflect on the day that you wrote 400 times that you're going to be a well-known artist, like that's got to be cool, because I'd imagine that today it's built so much proof or so much confidence. And like this whole time, I knew kind of that I was going to end up here. Yeah. And I'm the one that did this. I'm the one that got me to this point. I'm the one that had these lows, had these highs, had all of these things. And so I would imagine that would probably foster some kind of trust that like, if I was able to go through all of that, have all those losses, have all those wins, then whatever's ahead of me, I can also be prepared to do.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And I think that I've gone through like, I think the worst part of everything was just like ignoring my inner voice and my intuition when I was in my younger 20s. And I think now that I have that behind me, like it's all kind of uphill from here. I mean, knock on wood. But since I've gone through all like the trials and tribulations of like going full time, that was big, just taking that leap into the unknown. Now I have like community, like I have people that know my style and know my signature and know like my handwriting, you know what I mean, like my style. Yeah. So just having that under my belt is like so big, and I'm so grateful for like this community. And The people that come to my shows and the people that have supported me since I was bartending and telling people about, oh, I'm going to have an art show. I'd like have so many people from my bar coming in. Like just the support is like so motivating. And I can't like say thank you enough to this town and this community. It's like you can say whatever you want about Billings, but this is like the people here in this town have so much heart and so much support for young adults trying to like live their passion, live their dream. Yeah. So it's really motivating.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that was really heavy on my mind, and I talked about it a couple episodes, is I hear all the time from actors, podcasters, anybody who ends up in the public light. I think it's Jim Carrey has this famous quote where he says that, I wish that everybody could get rich and famous to realize that that is not the thing. It's not what you're going for. And really baked into that is that, yes, you have problems now, whether it's like when you just start and it's like, I have savings, but I'm making no money. Like there are problems in all of these different phases. But I think what he's alluding to is like the problems that you have now might not be problems that you're willing to trade for later. And listening to you talk about having the community and having the success and the momentum and all those different things, it's somewhere that I want to be eventually with the podcast and with some different things like that. And it makes me curious that like, I've never thought that the problems that I'm going to deal with once the show is big are not worth getting big. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, right. Yes, maybe they're like the most famous podcasters in the world. Can Joe Rogan go somewhere for dinner and not be bothered? No. True. But I'd so much more rather deal with that than some of the things that are happening now. Right. And so I'm curious for you, like, did you ever, as you were writing down, I want to be a known artist, I want to be this, I want to be that, did you ever think about like, okay, but what things come with being a huge artist? Like, I'm going to have to know how to run a business somehow. Like, did any of that stuff ever cross your mind, or like, how have you grown into all of those things? Yeah, I don't want to sound like I want to be like a huge artist. Like, I just like want to like be able to have like a good living and be able to do what I'm doing. And like, I don't want to be like at a restaurant and be like, oh, can I get your autograph? Like, I don't, that's not like what I'm looking for. But, yeah, I think like, I don't know. It's not that I want to be like famous, like, and maybe that will like, I don't know, like you're saying, like Joe Rogan, it's just like doing what you love might attract people to like loving who you are and like embracing that for what it is. And it might come with like getting stopped when you're on the street, but like, you know, that's kind of a good problem to have in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're being recognized for what you love, and that's same case with you. Like, you're doing what you love. Like, it's going to come with people knowing you, especially in a business like this. So, I think it's just kind of taking it for what it is and not really thinking too much about like what's going to come with it. Yeah. Is the way that I look at it. Like, focusing on the positives. Right. And just like focusing on like, this is the fact that you're doing what you love, and like whatever comes with that is going to come with that. And there's no use in like overthinking what that's going to be. Yeah, just deal with it when it gets there. Right. Yeah. I think that is cool, that like the commonality of it is if you're doing it for the right things. Right. Like if you're doing it because it's your passion, because you enjoy painting or because you enjoy good conversation or whatever the thing is, that as long as that stays at the center of the thing, then you're good. Yeah. But if you start doing it for, I want the money, I want the big house, I want the car, or I want people to know my name or something. Yeah. I think that that's where, once you get there and you have all those problems that come with it, you no longer have a thing where it's like, yeah, I have to deal with this bullshit, but I love painting. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's really important. And it's cool to hear that, like, now that you've got the community and stuff like that, that there hasn't been anything that's like, well, shit, I wouldn't have painted so hard if I knew that people were going to like, that all these things were going to come from it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So looking forward to, I know you're not much of a planner or anything like that. With getting the new studio, with doing some of those things, what are you looking forward to the most as far as like becoming the artist that you want to become? Is it like, you know, you had a bunch of big travel things. It sounds like the ocean studio cannot happen in Montana. So there's
Right.
got to be some things there. But
Yeah.
what are the things that you're most excited about, even if they're not particularly goal oriented?
Right. Well, I think over the last, so I started off, like I said earlier, I started off really abstract, like making these experiments. And then during COVID, my studio got shut down. I was just kind of confined in my apartment, and I had some cheap acrylic paint and some little canvases. And I was like literally looking on Pinterest, and I was like, oh, that buffalo looks kind of fun to paint.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I was like super called to like paint Montana wildlife. I just was like kind of bored and saw something that I liked and painted it. And then after doing more wildlife, I kind of like developed like a heart for it. You know, I was like, this shit's in our backyard. You know, I was looking online, and then this was when I did that mural up in Red Lodge. I was like, wait, I don't really have to look online. I could just look around, like making that commute, and even like going up to Yellowstone, I could take my own photos, and
True.
not just like a 3-hour drive. Like, I don't know. So I just kind of got motivated and inspired by what's in our backyard. So I've gone through so many like avenues of like, so I have this abstract, that's my heart. That's like my artist statement is like my abstract shit that's so weird and cool and colorful, and just like that's my like heart. And then I have this other form of art that is also becoming my heart. So it's like where I'm at, and like I'm inspired by this wildlife, because wildlife is so like, when you really look at wildlife, it's just like so cool. And just like the way they move and the way like their form is so like, I don't know, it's a kind of a like forgiving form when they're in motion. That's what I work with in my work. So and then like melding the two. So that's what I'm looking forward to most, is like,
Interesting.
yeah. So I have like my commissions, I have my abstract, and then I have this wildlife thing. And now I'm like, I want them to come together, and like, that's really going to be where I like am going to thrive. And I feel it coming, because I have like all of this energy and ideas when it comes to like my abstract work, but then like tying it into like what we can see in like a 2-hour drive, and like making that really like my statement and like my signature, and like being able to talk about that and like with confidence, and like knowing that's where my like heart is and where my art is at the time.
Yeah, that sounds very, very full circle, at least from
Yeah.
where your journey's been so far.
Right. Yeah. So it's really cool. And a lot of my youth, I was like, I want to get out of Montana. Like, it's so boring here, you know? And then I'm like, no, as I get older, I'm like, no, this is like amazing. It's so amazing that we get to live here. And I want that to be like evident in my work. So, yeah, and I do have dreams of traveling and exploring and being in other cities. I'm so inspired by big cities and like graffiti and trash and like diversity. I'm so inspired by all of that. But like I said, it's always so also inspiring to come back to Montana and seeing like what there is here that gives me that drive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just going to go with the flow.
Kind of what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Follow the intuition.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I think your story is super inspiring to me, because I think that anybody who's got a dream where they have been called to it for a long time, I think that there are some people who work their whole lives to figure out what their passion is, what their calling is, and some people never find it. But it's always inspiring to me when somebody does find it, and then they find a way to be like, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. I have to do this.
Yeah.
And so before we get out of here, for the people who are trying to find their passion, or they think that like directionally they might be getting close or something like that, what advice or what experience maybe would you relate to tell those people, like, here's how you might be able to find it, or here's how you should go all in on it once you do?
Yeah, and I think that like kind of like depends on the avenue that you want to go down. So like I said, like if you're into being a creative, it's just like getting that work out there. And actually, I think that translates to like everything you want to do is just like putting it out into the universe, and just like having it known to other people and yourself, and just like taking, and maybe it is like having a cushion or something like in the background that you know you can fall back on. Like maybe it's taking 2 weeks off your job and like saying you're going on a vacation, just like doing what you want to do and seeing if you like it, like dipping your feet in, seeing if like, oh, I could do this full time, so maybe I will, quit my job.
Yeah.
Or like maybe you do it for 2 weeks and you're like, oh, I don't think I could do that. I want the structure of a job and I want that money and I want to have that stability, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you have to, you're not forced to do it.
Right.
Like the leap is so worth it. For me, the leap was so worth it, but sometimes people aren't like me, and that's totally okay. And maybe you want to have that like consistency, and like that's very valuable for some people, and I appreciate that too. So
just
whatever.
letting the passion be whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
I think it is funny. Like some passions are just supposed to be a side thing.
Right.
They're not supposed to be what you go all in on.
Yeah. And it would drive some people crazy to be a full-time creative. Like I'm in my head all the time. Like I go work out, and that's when I kind of get out of my head, but I'm always like in my head.
Yeah.
So, that could either drive you crazy or drive you crazy.
Just choose your flavor.
Choose your crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate the heck out of you being willing to do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did have, I did
have this tequila.
I was already thinking in my head, I was like, the last couple of days, I was like, all right, what am I going to say to Ruby when she texts me and says she's going to bail out on this because she doesn't want to talk about it? But I think that like I said, your story is super inspiring to me.
Thank you.
And I think that for other people who, whether it's painting or whatever their thing is, I think that being willing to just like go all in on it, do the dang thing, and then also let yourself honor it, let yourself be consumed by it, like do all those things. I think that you like actually embody that, and you can just like feel that. Well, I can just feel that when I'm around you. So
thank you.
I'm super glad that you decided to go all in on it, because it's very like you can tangibly feel it being around you. So
I think you have to honor like the hard parts of it too, though. Like it's not all going to be like I'm shining and happy because I'm doing what I love. Like I get like in wormholes where I don't shower for 4 days. I just paint. I'm like depressed. Not actually, but like I don't socialize. I don't do any of that. I just like am working. And there's glamorous parts of being an artist for sure. I get to wake up and paint every day. I'm so lucky because I get to wake up and I paint. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, that's not without the days that are really hard. And like, if I'm not feeling creative, I try not to beat myself up, but sometimes that's kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just like embracing like, and like feeling the emotions that come with like doing what you love, and like not getting too down, not getting too up. Like you got to kind of stay humble and just kind of trust your inner voice and what you're doing. And I think that'll lead you good places.
Last mic drop of the day. Awesome. Well, for everybody who wants to check your stuff out, hit you up for commissions, visit a show, what do you got going on?
Well, I'm doing the Moss Mansion Spring Fest June 7th.
Okay.
Yep. So that's coming up soon. And then my Instagram's just Ruby Hahn Art, and I am pretty active on there with what I'm doing in terms of like activities and shows and all of that stuff, and sip and paints. I'm not doing as much right now just because I'm focusing on catching up on my commission work. So, and there's like seasons of that too. I'll have so many sip and paints you can come to. Just stay tuned. And right now is not one of those phases, but you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
All right, stay tuned. Well, thank you again so much for doing this.
I did it.
And we did it. Awesome. Thank you for listening, everybody. We love you. And
we love you.
Be where your feet are. Peace.